the lyrics to Snow Globe? Did you have those in the pocket for a little while before the record, or what's the story on?
No, I think it just came together. It was like one of those. I don't know. It's so hard to do it now, but back then I could just these songs kind of came to me magically. And people talk about this. It sounds so pretentious, like, well, it just came to me. It was like a magical moment, but it was like I barely remember writing it. I remember having the concept of like somebody who refuses to see outside of their little bubble and just wants to live in a snow globe, just live in this perfect little world. And then I wrote that pretty quickly. Like, I don't even know if I can tap into who that person was that was able to write something with such ease back then.
That's really the song, Danielle, that I think transcends. I had a word in my head and I lost it, but to where people are present day 2025, the Snow Globe today might be somebody's phone or tablet. Yeah. Or their own echo chamber.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, honestly, that song, that's probably the song that I've gotten the most good feedback on out of anything I've ever written, as far as just people relating to it. And I think part of it is that they relate to it from so many different angles, and it does have a little bit of this. You can kind of take it however you want to, and
How about this? I mean, right in the chorus. I mean, for children that watch a lot of stuff on YouTube, nothing bad happens here. The colors are so bold. If you're in your, like you said, the doom scroll. I mean, it's just all of that. I'll never feel pain or fear, and I won't grow old. I feel like that's kind of how we are now. We want to retain the beauty. We want to retain the youth. We want to kind of medicate, prevent experiencing grief. I mean, when was the last time that somebody strolled through a cemetery? I'm not saying people don't, but I drive past a number of them on the way I have to travel through town, and I don't see people walking through them. Like, when was the last time you got in touch with grief, or you actually went to a funeral for a kind of third-tier acquaintance, just to have some maybe not very frontal grief in your day, but just to go through it.
Well, that's the thing. We don't go through. We don't. They always say like the best way out is through, and we often are like, nope, I'm just gonna get that dopamine fix, and we don't want to feel anything. It was part of why I didn't write for like 3 years, because I would sit down to write, and I was like, oh, I don't want to think about these things. I don't want to feel. I don't want to feel what's been happening for the last few years. And so I would just get scattered, and I would like go on to something else, or it's so easy to get distracted now. Yeah. And it's so easy to self-medicate, and without even drugs or alcohol. It's like the drug is that phone. It's like, let me look at cat videos or whatever. But and it's also a weird mixed thing where people who do art, whether you're a musician or a visual artist or whatever you do, you have to, like, this is an essential tool now. So while you're actually speaking out against, being distracted by this thing, you're hoping that people are distracted enough by it that they see your video and that they come to your show.
Yes.
It is such a like just cycle of it's crazy. Like just a, I don't know. It's weird to be, I've been doing this for over 20 years. Obviously now I know because the album came out 20 years ago. So I almost forgot that it's been that long, but now I know that it's been at least 20 years. And when I think about, the pursuit of this thing, whatever the hell it is, I'm not pursuing becoming a freaking rock star or anything like that. I don't care about that. I want to be a musician, an artist. I love music. I love playing it. I love playing with other people. I love writing. I don't even love writing, but I love having written.
Oh, wow. What a line.
And I love to have that product. Not the product, but like the results of having written. And all of this requires doing all the things that kind of make me sick about our current culture, which is like, look at me, pay attention to me, and I hate that. But it's like I almost think like like musicians or people, like anybody who does art, we're like the original narcissists. We're like, look at me. But we're trying, I feel like, yeah, but I also want to, I'm like, but we weren't just like, hey, just pay attention to me just so you could give me attention. Like I'm making something that I think might be of value to you. And then reality television just turned everything into just like, it doesn't matter. Talent doesn't matter. None of that. It's just look at me. Just pay attention to me. Watch me be an asshole. Whatever.
Yes.
Watch me do that. And, I started probably with like the Jerry Springer type talk shows and that kind of thing. And that's another thing that's a reason why we're where we're at. It's like and I'm such a hypocrite I feel like a hypocrite to be like, everybody calm down. Why do you have to post everything on Facebook? Why do you need that attention? It's like, well, performers are not musicians just in general. Performers we're the pioneers of of the need for attention, of a desperate need for attention.
Yes.
So who am I to say, don't do that, But it is weird now that everybody, it doesn't matter if you're an artist or not, everybody wants someone to see their post on Facebook. Like everybody I saw a post yesterday that someone said, oh, everybody's just trying to get attention on here. And I'm like, well, what the frick do you think you're doing by making that post?
Yeah, right.
You're also trying to get attention. You don't see that. Like, how is that? There's a disconnect there. Anyway, sorry, I'm babbling, but
do you ever long for the times? Maybe it was just, I remember in the 90s, the mid 90s, I would literally go to like the bookstore and pick up, whether it's Circus magazine, when you want to read about Motley Crue or Guns N' Roses or some of the bands. I mean, I loved all that stuff, but still do. But most of it was you were just seeing still photos and articles on these bands that you liked, and you read every word of that article and that interview. And then, I mean, they did some record store signings, some of that, but you really had to go see them live. Maybe they put out a live album, occasionally a live DVD, but it was a lot of just still photography of these people. And
I didn't know you were a metalhead.
Yeah.
I was totally into that stuff. That's what got me playing. Yeah. Metal Edge magazine, Circus magazine.
Loved it. And some of those bands I have a soft spot for today. Yeah. My older brother got me into all that stuff. He was, I could go on, but we purchased and read and sat in stores and read Metal Edge.
We used to do that.
Hit Parader.
We used to stand in line at Strawberries. There was a place called Strawberries I think it was more regional to here, but it was a record store where a lot of times, stood in line to meet Extreme. Or LA Guns. We stood in line to meet LA Guns and get their autographs. And it was like, and you'd also we also had Tower Records in Boston, and we would if an album was coming out at a new album would be released at midnight, and you'd wait in line to go and buy the new album.
Yep.
There was so much more value put on it in a way,
Yeah, in 99, 2000, I worked in a record store in Birmingham. I was living there at the time, and we would put on a couple of those midnight madness. I don't know what they called them exactly, but we'd have a special release day. It was fun. It was just a fun time. Posters, you walk into the record store and posters on the wall, and that's where you saw the bands that you liked in still photography. And
there was a place. There was a place in downtown Boston that was called Stairway to Heaven, and you actually went down the stairs to get to it. It was like pre-Newberry Comics, but they had millions of posters of any band you could imagine, and then they had a glass case with actual printed photographs, like printed glossies of bands that you like. I remember buying one of Randy Rhoads, and that was you'd scan it and be like, I'll take that one, and that was the still photography. That was a thing,
right? And I'm sure those artists, if they had video or social media as a medium at the time, they would have been all over it, but
of course,
I wonder if there's something to the lifestyle back then, or maybe allowed a lot of them to just do drugs and drink whenever they wanted until they had to go on stage because they didn't have to spend half the morning creating like social media
making
posts
content
loaded, like fully loaded at 11
They
a.m.
also could do some debaucherous stuff and not be, not have it posted on Twitter the next day and like, look at what so-and-so did. We're canceling him or whatever.
Yeah. So, yeah, I really don't envy songwriters and musicians and kind of unless you've got somebody like a publicist or social media person that's doing this for you all day. It's like you kind of have to crank some of that out, whether you love it or not. And
yeah.
And then you want to kind of walk the line of like, what's too much? I don't want to do 3 posts a day, but is 3 posts a week
You don't want to
enough?
overdo it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of like, I go through phases where I feel, like I can do that. All right. I'm like where I'm into it. And then times when I'm like, I don't even want to go anywhere near it. So it's funny.
Yeah.
It's like, it goes through cycles of like psychological cycles.
Right.
Well,
we've covered a lot. I didn't talk a lot about the single here, and I really like it. I don't typically get very political on the show, but if you've been listening for a while, you probably know that I don't have a MAGA hat in the closet. I'm not gonna tell you that I've got a Harris Waltz hunting cap in the closet either. So I can appreciate this song and what it means, and I know what we're getting at here, and it is a.
It's like, and I'm aware of the irony of the fact that I'm actually writing about him while I'm saying not to write about him and not to talk about him. So, it's kind of a cruel cycle of not being able to, we just can't stop,
But we couldn't.
And that's his biggest talent is getting you to talk about him.
Well,
that's everything. That's everything. He's the best promoter on the planet. There's no one who could say he's not impressive. It's impressive that he can be as heinous as he is. Been elected twice.
I remember the summer of 2015, the early fall of 2015, and whether you turned on MSNBC, CNN, certainly Fox, if he was talking anywhere, they cut in unabridged for like as long as he was 25, 35 minutes, 40 minutes. They did this every day, like.
And you're talking, and it's not just, it's like the polar opposite views. The people who hate him won't stop talking about him. The people who love him won't stop talking about him. And that is the ultimate promotion. He did not need he didn't have to campaign. We're going to talk about him.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's really, and the idea that he's going to be in the zeitgeist every moment of every day now for at least the next 4 years. If we're lucky, only the next 4 years. I've had to just be like, today, the last 2 days because of the LA fires, and I want to I want to know what's happening because my stepson is out there. I've gotten into that doom scroll, that trap a little bit over the last 2 days. That's probably why when I signed on with you today, I was like, ugh.
I know.
But in general, I've been like, I didn't know. I knew he said something about Greenland yesterday, but I was like, I'm not going to look at it. I'm not reading it. And then today, finally, I, found out what it was. But yeah, I've been really trying to like stay disconnected from that kind of news because I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do anything about it, and it's just going to be. It's just I don't need to be like hammered over the head with it constantly. So anyway.
Well,
we just keep writing, keep in our, I think it's just, you just try to, it's not that you want to like hide in your little bubble, but you can turn to your community, your local communities, and just, make sure you do keep in touch with your loved ones and just try to foster goodness within your small little circles if you can, and try to spread that and try to help outside of your circle as much as you can, and just do what you can to be, I don't know, to put good into the world rather than negativity whenever possible. That's all I can say about that.
Well, I've had a chance over the past year, and I really enjoy this because I just encourage everybody, if it's in a work setting or wherever, maybe you're forced to spend half a day with somebody that you never hang out with. And I've gotten to do this with people that I'm pretty sure we're not aligned politically. And you get to talking to certain people and you realize fundamentally on a core level, we don't have a lot that we disagree with.
Yeah.
We care about our loved ones the same way. We delight in our pets and how they light up our house the same way. You know, we go around the grocery store, we fill up our carts with the same stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we all use Crest or Colgate. I mean, it's like mostly. And so I just would encourage more conversation with people. If somebody comes out and just really offends you, you don't have to continue talking to them. But if you're hanging around someone who's just clearly not of your ilk and the conversation stays away from that, just listen. I talk a lot, but I just encourage people, just listen to what people have to say, because most of the time I think most people they want to know that somebody's listening. And cares. Yeah. So going back to what you said about Jimmy Carter, it's not my, here I go. It's like not my show to share my opinion, but
it is your show. What are you talking about? It's Dan time.
Yeah, right. What you see out there in your doom scroll, it kind of encourages all of us to just live this self-serving life. And it's not as hard as you think to just serve others. Whether that's just sharing your smiles, sharing your personality with people you meet. And
it can be it can be like very local and very small. Like it could just be like, doesn't have to be, I think we get overwhelmed with the idea of like, I can't do anything about we feel helpless, right?
Yeah.
Like, what can I do? I can help somebody. I can put money into someone's GoFundMe or something. I could do, but like you feel kind of helpless about everything. Like there's too many things.
Yes.
But if you can just kind of on a very, just do one small thing, whatever it is, just that one small thing. If everybody does the one small thing, it turns into a bigger thing, and it just spreads goodness. Look for the helpers, as Mr. Rogers, the great Fred Rogers, said.
Oh yeah. Okay. One more thing I have to cover. I always make it sound like it's something big, but I remember a post that you shared where you did like an instrument swap and you're behind the drum kit. Talk about your interest in playing drums when you get a chance to do it. What's that side of you? I remember a post where you're Peter Criss around Halloween.
Yeah.
I'm a big Kiss fan, by the way. We could talk about Kiss for half an episode too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That is, so the way that even started was, so my husband and a close friend of ours have their birthdays around the same time in November every year. And so we started like a sort of a joke band where my husband's a bass player, but he plays guitar in this band. That's not that much of a stretch of like, imagine, he's also a really good guitar player. So it's not a crazy thing to swap instruments in that way, but he's playing an instrument he doesn't normally play. Our friend Jim he plays bass, but he's a hobbyist. So it's like, this is like his only gig every year, so he's pretty good considering that, and he's gotten better over the years too. And then another friend of ours who plays in a cover band, plays guitar. He's like one of the ringers. And then we have a friend who's a ringer who's playing piano, and he's a pianist, and he's really good, and he knows all these tunes. And for some reason they were like, you play drum, I ended up playing drums, which I was like, sure, that'll be fun. So I'm like the most lazy drummer that ever was. I never set up my own kit. I'm just like, if there's a kit there for me to play, then I'll play it. And like the first few years we did it like we would do it every 2 or 3 years when we first started doing it. It was always around their birthdays. And I learned like one beat when I was 14, and I would just basically play that one beat for every song. 1 or 2 beats. That was it. Like there were like 2 different, it was like either 8 notes or it would just be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Anyway, those are like, that was it. And we started doing them more frequently. We started doing them as Halloween gigs the last few years. And I took a drum lesson like before the one from like 3 years ago or whatever. And ever since then, now all of a sudden I'm like, well, I have to try to play a little bit. Like now I ruined it because now I want to actually play well.
Yeah.
And we have an electric kit in the house so I can practice, and I don't practice as much as I should. But now, so now if I have actually on some non-joke gigs, if there's a situation like there was for this thing that we did, we call it the Winter Wonder Band, and this is the other. So, sorry, I'm all over the place. The joke band is called Men Without Work.
Oh, love
It's
it.
like a combination of Men Without Hats
Right.
and Men at Work. Yeah. So that's just, and we play nothing but 80s covers. We just play silly 80s covers, and it's a lot of fun. It's sort of, we do little bits in between. It's silly. It's totally silly. But the picture that you saw was from a thing we call Winter Wonder Band, which is like sort of a super group of all our friends, and we are playing all the instruments that we play. But my friend Jim Larkin, who's in my band, who's a bass player and a drummer, plays drums in this band. And he's over the last 2 years, he's become somebody who can get up front and play guitar and sing, and he does his own thing as well. So we decided to switch, and I played drums for one song. So there's been a couple of situations that aren't a joke where I've gotten on drums, and I just keep it relatively simple. I can throw like one fill in there here and there now, but I've gotten a little bit better. But I wouldn't necessarily hire me for your session.
Going back to my early 20s, that's what I played, and I jammed with some people because my brother was a guitarist, and then he's in a band. He sang mostly, so I wasn't going to. But I just kind of knew around 8, 9, 10 years old that I just wanted to be a drummer. Like I had a poster going back to Metal Edge. I had a poster of Poison on my wall. I'll never forget it. I loved all of them. Maybe CC was my favorite, but I've always liked Ricky Rocket.
Ricky Rocket, yeah, I remember Ricky.
And I listened. Eddie Trunk's got a podcast. He still talks to these guys. I've listened to one recently with Ricky Rocket. But I just have always enjoyed playing drums to the extent that I can. And so I love seeing that.
Yeah, that's cool. It's fun. It's a lot of fun, and it's very physical. Like I have a lot of respect for drummers as physical humans.
Yeah,
it
is
a different thing.
I don't think I could go on tour and do it. Like I had Danny Laverty, who just recently, I think he's going back out on tour with Jeff Tate, the former lead singer for Queensryche.
Yeah.
Really cool guy, and that's an example of like going out there playing a full set of really any kind of music professionally every night on drums. Some of these guys take really good care of themselves.
I think you would have to be able to do that.
I don't know how in the past if most of the band was like fully indulging night after night on the road, like how the drummer could really do that. Like he's the guy that's got to go to bed early, maybe get on the Peloton, but they didn't have it back then. But like,
well, that's the thing too, and it's also drums are that's the foundation of the music. So I always say that like when I'm teaching finger picking, actually, because I'm like your thumb is the drummer and the bass player. It's the rhythm section, and I'm like, if you hit a wrong note, if the guitar player hits a wrong note, people can still bob their head or dance to it. If the drummer drops a stick and drops the beat, people are like, what the hell just happened? Like, so it's the drummer is very important.
Yeah.
The drums and bass are like, that's the foundation of the music. So, and like, if you're not physically, it's funny, like when we did that, when we first started doing that gig, like we do Dance With Myself, the Billy Idol song, and I'm like, it's so fast. Like I would just be like, I have a sense of timing. Like it's not that I can't keep time, but I can't physically keep up with what's happening. Like, so I lose time just because I'm like, I get tired.
Yeah.
Like, so anyway.
One more song I want to pluck out here because I didn't mention it on the first episode, Monster from the Glory Junkies record that you performed solo and with the band. That's my favorite one on the Glory Junkies album.
Oh, thank you.
What is that, 2015?
2017.
17, yeah.
Yeah.
So people listening, if you don't have that one added, and let's say you've been listening to this podcast and you're multi-scrolling you're adding some of Danielle's material to your catalog, look up Danielle Miraglia and the Glory Junkies, because you might miss it with the solo
it'll
stuff.
Be written. It'll be out as Danielle M and the Glory Junkies. It's annoying that they don't both come out up in the same search, but it's two separate searches. So when I get my Spotify, numbers or whatever, it's always like my solo stuff has way more numbers than the band. The band is like doesn't have a lot at all.
Yeah. The band is
neither are breaking any charts, but they're
the band's like the best kept secret. But if you're listening to something to rock to, and
it's a good band.
You're hearing this podcast, and it's the end of the day. You're about to head out somewhere. Put it on. Listen to Monster. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a good foot stomper,
the Glory Junkies,
head bobber kind of tune, and
yeah. It's also about all that, about people basically making up, just believing what they want to believe. It's kind of all the stuff we just talked about at length, but yeah, just about making your own news, DIY news.
But your songs, that theme kind of reappears. And the solo album from 2015, Glory Junkies, about attention seekers. The theme reappears in a good way. I think it's just it's a reminder to folks who listen to your music that you can create some separation from the extreme version of this. Like you said, everybody's kind of got an ego. Some people, it's way off the charts.
Yeah. I've had friends say to me, I've had a couple of friends who say, my biggest fear sometimes is that your song is about me. They're like, well, then it probably is about you.
Yeah, right. There's people you really can't get across to. You can't get across to them in conversation, but if they listen to a song, because you can't interrupt a song. I mean, you can skip it, but if you listen to a song, you're like,
I mean, the truth is, if you actually think it might be about you, then you probably, if you're self-aware, that it's probably not actually about you. It's usually about people who aren't self-aware at all.
Yeah. Oh man, Danielle, this has been a blast. This has been a riot at times.
Well, thank you so much for having me. That was a great conversation. I enjoyed that a lot. I wasn't sure what I was going to have to give, so.
Yeah.
I appreciate you and you having me on, and thank you. Thanks for making for a great conversation.
Well, you're welcome, and I know there's other things on the top of your mind right now, and I'm happy to hear about your stepson. And
he's smart. He and his girlfriend they're smart, and they're prepared to head south further if they need to. So, whew, yeah.
But thank you for appearing on my show. I'm really delighted to introduce you to my listeners. Dan Zlotnick appeared on the show. He's from Westchester County, New York, Americana songwriter. When he came on my show, he said, I listened to the Danielle Miraglia episode, and I loved it. Yeah.
That's so nice.
So if I'm just even connecting a few people or some of the songwriters who've appeared in the past and maybe they haven't heard of some of the other guests, that's a fun thing about the show.
That's awesome. Thank you. This is great. Thank you. Thanks so much for. Should I mention some shows that are coming up, or should I just throw those at you later? And
no, please do. I'll include these in the show notes as well. If I hadn't talked about Ricky Rocket and the drum conversation.
I love the drum. I love Rick. I love that stuff. We could do a whole podcast on our metalhead childhoods. I would love to talk. I'd love to just do a whole thing on that, because that's part of my roots. Those are my roots as a guitar player, and that was like,
okay,
that stuff was huge for me. So we could do a whole other episode about that.
I'm sure you remember when Skid Row, the self-titled album, came out. And the first time you heard, like, I Remember You or Youth Gone Wild or watching the videos.
I was obsessed.
Yeah.
I saw, well, I might have, I have like I feel like I might have even talked about this on the last episode about how Skid Row is what turned me into like a metalhead. It changed me chemically when I first saw When I saw it, I was like into hip hop and dance music, I was always I always loved Prince. I was always into, the pop music of the time. And I had gone through different phases, but I was like in a very heavy, like dance and hip hop phase when this happened. And my friend was like, she put on Headbangers Ball and the Skid Row Piece of Me video was on. And it was like Sebastian Bach in his mesh shirt, looking like a 90s supermodel, or this was before it was like 89, but looking like a supermodel, almost like a female supermodel, but sounding like a man. And it was just, it was like, there was something about that moment where I was just like, oh, something in me has changed.
Yep. Yep.
And I was like, whatever that is, I want it. And I got to see them open for Aerosmith at the Boston Garden later that year.
Man.
They used to do a New Year's Eve show every year. The Aerosmith used to do, it was like the night before New Year's Eve, and I was like out of my mind to see Skid Row. So actually, and speaking of other podcasts, Ahmet Zappa has a great podcast called something like Rock and Cocktails or something like that. And he interviews Sebastian Bach on occasion, and he has people like that on all the time. So that might be one you might enjoy.
I'm checking it out. Yep. Oh, wow. But yeah, tell the listeners where you're playing here in the early part of 2025.
So this probably won't come out in time for tomorrow, so I won't mention tomorrow's show, but I'll mention a big one, January 19th. I'm playing in Woodstock, New York at the Colony Theater with Ariel Zevon, who is the daughter of Warren Zevon, who is kind of the reason why I started writing songs again this year. I got into him and was like, oh yeah, clever shit. That's what it kind of reinvigorated it just tapped something. And I was like, okay. So that was exciting that came up as a thing. So I'm going to be doing a double bill with her at the Colony Theater in Woodstock, New York, January 19th. And then I have February 1st with my friend Peter Parchek. We're doing the Three Kings tribute to Albert King, B.B. King, and Freddie King at the Fallout Shelter in Norwood, Mass. And that's with Diane Blue and an all-star band. And then I'll just mention one more, and the rest you could just kind of look them up. But then I think it's February 8th with my friend Lisa Bastoni, who's an incredible songwriter. Will just tug at your heartstrings. You should have her on sometime, even though she's not a Dan. But she's fantastic, and she's just a true artist in every sense of the word, and just a beautiful songwriter, like just one of my favorite songwriters, and happens to be one of my best buddies. So we're doing a show together at Crossroads Music Series in North Andover, Mass. And I'll just stop it there, and you can go on daniellem.com to find other stuff. I'll be doing in-town stuff, out-of-town stuff throughout the year. So,
in the Patreon again, patreon.com/Danielle M. Quite a trove of material on Danielle's Patreon that you'll have a fun time digging into.
Yeah, you could see me awkwardly look into a camera and talk, and it's fun.
I'd like to say I get used to it, but I'm not sure that I do. But there's a video component to this. I don't know when it will come out, if it will come out. Some of the Dan Time video episodes take months, if ever, to be released. So it's an audio product. I was telling Danielle this at the top of the conversation. It's a conversation for you to listen to. I think there's other people out there that can scratch the itch for you if you just really want to have the full visual piece. Maybe someday I'll do that consistently, but
I mean, if you just see one still of what we're doing, it's pretty much what it looks like through the whole thing. So
yes,
it's just two heads in front of a mic.
Yeah, right.
There's not a whole lot else happening.
Well, Danielle, let's do this again sometime.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here and sharing some laughs. Hopefully you guys listening, wherever you're listening, just enjoy the diversion. Take a break.
Yes.
Whatever news outlet feeds you what's going on in the world, it's nice to be aware. It is good to keep up, but step out every once in a while, whether you're listening to my podcast or not. Step out, do something that relaxes you and excites you takes you back to 2005. And check out Nothing Romantic. And you're going to like it from the start. So when you hear Snow Globe and you kind of want to hear the story about it, there's your transition to the Patreon. So wonderful having you here today, Danielle. And here I duplicate this outro or this farewell all the time. It's great having you, and then I say it was great having you 2 or 3 more times.
That's all right.
All the best.
I like hearing it.
All the best to you. Can't
Great
wait
to be here.
Can't wait to see what's next as the year moves along. And let's see more of Lucy.
All right. You'll get more Lucy for sure.
All right. That's it for this episode of the Dan Time Podcast. Thank you, Danielle Miraglia, for reappearing. And you guys have a great week and have some fun out there. We'll see you next Sunday on the Dan Time Podcast.